Hello everyone, welcome to Lavender and Lace. I'm Alicia. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I have several DIYs for you guys and I think you will really enjoy these. I had a lot of fun creating them and I can't wait to see which one is your favorite. If you like farmhouse decor, rustic DIYs, easy crafts, and just making things in general, I hope you consider subscribing if you haven't already. Please give this video a thumbs up, and let's get started with today's projects. For this first project, I am using some empty oatmeal containers. I know you're probably thinking, what in the world is she going to do with oatmeal containers? But I promise they turn out really cute in the end. Just stick with me so you can see how they look when I'm finished up with them. I just took some of the truffle colored chalk paint and painted the lids of these, and this did take 2 coats to get complete coverage. I covered that top portion, the outside rim, and also that bottom edge rim, if that makes sense. And I painted the actual containers with some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color white. One of these I did 2 coats, and the other one I just did 1 coat. I wanted complete coverage for one of those. I didn't want any of the image showing through. And I just took a piece of cardstock and I was just measuring to see how many pages that I would need to print to cover that container. And I did have to print 2 of those. And I will show you guys the image that I selected in just a bit. And I did have to trim that off, so I just laid down my canister and marked a line and just trimmed that up with my paper cutter. That just gave me a good clean edge. And this fit my canister really well. And don't make the mistake that I almost made with this project. I almost started to glue it down before I trimmed it off, and that would just have been such a headache if I had done that. So be sure that you measure that and just trim off any excess first before you start applying that to your container. And I wanted to use some of the Elmer's glue sticks. I thought that would work really well for this project, but unfortunately all the ones that I had on hand were dried up, so I have added those to my list to get very soon. So what I decided to use instead was some of this Eileen's tacky glue, and it worked really well. I just put a small amount on about 1/4 of my cardstock, and I just rolled my container up and just smoothed that out with my hands as I was going along, and just pressed that really well to get that adhered to the container. And since this did not fit completely, I did have to just trim off a smaller piece from my second printout. And I found this image on Creative Fabrica. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I really love that website, and I find a lot of graphics and things that I use for my projects there. And I will link their website down below for you guys if you would like to check that out. So I just cut off a smaller piece and just kind of pieced that together with the cardstock that I had already applied. I made sure to leave the edges just a little bit longer so I could have them overlapping that underneath, and just took some of the tacky glue once again and applied that to my container. I tried to be sure to get everything lined up, and with this particular design I wasn't able to line up the image, if that makes sense to you guys. I just trimmed off a section that I thought would match fairly well with the design that was already on there. And again, I just used my fingers to smooth that down and make sure the crease was very well adhered to the other part. And one of the edges did not want to stick very well, so I just went back in with a little bit of that tacky glue and pressed that down again and just let my canister dry. And after the glue had dried, I just went in with some of my antique wax from Waverly and just distressed the top edge and the bottom as well. I wanted to age that just a little bit and have that the edges kind of blend in a little bit better with the paper. And I just took some jute twine and just wrapped around my container just a couple of times, and I added one of these little bamboo spoons that I have in my stash. I just picked those up from Hobby Lobby and they were 40% off in the fall section, and that is all I did for this first canister. So my second container is the one that I did 2 coats of the chalk paint on, and I found these gorgeous napkins at a local store that's here in my town, and I thought they were just beautiful. These were 3-ply napkins, and the first layer peeled off very easily, but that second layer, it took me probably 2 to 3 minutes to get that started off camera before I was able to even get my fingernail in a crevice to start peeling that up. So I just pulled that one off very carefully so I wouldn't tear my napkin, and got that ready to go on my canister. And I just used some Mod Podge and took one of my paint brushes to smooth that out on the canister. And I tried to do a thin layer. I didn't want to have a lot of Mod Podge on there, as that would make my napkin too wet and it would tear easier. So I just spread that out evenly across my canister, and I just put down the napkin and smooth that out very gently so I wouldn't have any rips or tears. Just used my fingertips and patted that down, and you will get some bubbles and wrinkles in your napkin just because they are so thin, but I think that just adds to the character of your piece that you're working on. And I wanted to show you how I continue to put that napkin down on my canister. I just flipped that over and just laid my napkin down upside down so I would be able to spread that Mod Podge. If I had continued out the other way, I was afraid that it was going to fold back on itself and get stuck to that first layer. So I just did it like this, and it seemed to work very well. And I think this would be a great idea for any type of room decor. These would look great in your bedroom or in your craft room. You can personalize them with any theme that you would like, any kind of scrapbook paper that you might like. These would just be great to add to any room in your home. And I just let that set and dry for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I just took some scissors and trimmed off the excess on the top, and I used one of my jumbo nail files just to file down that edge, and it worked really well just to remove that excess napkin on the top. And if you don't have a nail file, you can use either a sanding block or just a piece of sandpaper, but anything like that will give you a good clean edge on your project. And then I just took some more Mod Podge, and this time I decided to put it out in a bowl so I could control the amount better that was going onto my project. And I just used very light strokes with my paintbrush so I wouldn't rip that napkin, and just went across the entire surface. And these turned out better than I expected. The one that had the napkin on, my daughter actually saw before it was completely finished, and she tried to confiscate that for her room decor already, but I think these really turned out great. Let me know what you think about these. My husband and my kids would all tell you that I am a total book nerd. I love books, and I have been wanting some vintage antique ones to add to my decor. And I found 3 hardback books at my local thrift store, and I picked those up for a couple of dollars a piece. And I started this project by painting each one with some Waverly chalk paint. I picked a couple of my neutral colors and then the celery green. I just thought these would work really well for the technique that I'm going to be doing with these books. And I did 2 coats of paint on each of the books. And I made sure to go around all three of the edges on the front and the back covers as well. And here's what they look like once they have their new coat of paint. And to get them ready for the aging process, I took just a piece of sandpaper, and I also used my sanding block to help me rough up the surface and get some scratches in there. And this is a very messy process. I got chalk paint dust everywhere, so I wiped off my books really well with a clean cloth, and I also had to clean up my surface before I could start the aging. And I just took some of the Waverly Antique Wax and just put down a very light coat with one of my foam brushes and went back in immediately with a baby wipe and just wipe that down. And this will give you just some really good aging on your books. They look like they've been sitting around in the bookstore for a long time. And I love the way that the colors changed where the surface was scratched up a little bit more. This is definitely a technique that I will be doing again, and I think my favorite book was actually the green one. I wasn't sure which color would turn out the best, but I think that one would be my pick for sure. I can't wait to put these out with my fall decor. Let me know what you guys think about this one. For this next project, I picked up some of these plastic caddies from the Dollar Tree. They have them every year with their school supplies. I just took those outside and gave them a couple of coats of this spray paint. That's one of my favorites to use, is the Hammered Rust-Oleum, and that color was dark bronze. And my daughter and I really enjoy coffee drinks, so I have been slowly collecting some of those bottles for this project. I just took some of the white acrylic paint from Apple Barrel and put a small amount in the bottom of this to coat the glass. I just tapped and added more as I needed it. Just continued that process for 6 bottles. That's how many you will need for this particular project. And I started by putting these bottles upside down in a paper bowl, but I knew that wasn't the best solution. And then I saw my egg caddy that I had sitting in the kitchen, and I'm like, that will be perfect for this project. So I just set those bottles upside down to let any of that excess paint drip out, and just put some aluminum foil in the bottom of that just to catch the paint, and that will help you collect it and just put it back in your bottle. And before my paint had completely dried, I wanted to just clean up the top portion of the bottle to make it actually look like milk. And I started by using a wet paper towel and quickly realized that was not the best way to go about that. So I got a dry one, and that worked really well and just got me a good clean line there. And I just took a baby wipe and cleaned off the dried paint off of the top of the rim of my bottle. And I think these would be super cute if you used either pink or brown paint and made strawberry and chocolate milk. That would be super cute to put in your kitchen decor as well. And for the caps of these milk bottles, I took those outside and gave them a good coat of the white spray paint. And to start with, this was all I was going to do, is paint them white. And then I decided I wanted to change the color. And I took some of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Elephant and just did a very light coat over the tops of these. I wanted them to look distressed and like metal bottle caps. And just to add a little bit of color and texture, I used some of my cotton cording to go around my handle. I just cut off a smaller section of that to make it a little bit easier to work with. It was still challenging to do this part, but getting that smaller piece really helped me be able to get that wound around my handle. I just took some hot glue and glued that underneath to start with and just started wrapping that just pulling that through, and I did use some additional hot glue in different areas to help hold that cording down. And you can find this at Hobby Lobby. They have several different selections of this. There's different colors and a couple of different sizes. I think it's called Cora's cotton cording. I'll see if I can find that and leave a link in the description box for you guys. And to finish off that cording, I just took some hot glue, trimmed off any of the frayed edges. And as a little accent piece, I wanted to add a tag to my milk caddy, and I just found this SVG file, of course, on Creative Fabrica. I will find the link to this and put that in the description box for you guys as well, if you would like to use it for a project. Just cut that out with my Cricut Joy and weeded that out and got it ready to go onto my tag. And I picked up this tag from the Dollar Tree. I got a couple of them because I knew they would be great accent pieces or good for tiered trays, and I didn't do anything with the tag. It came painted and distressed already, so all I did was add my SVG file to the front. And I guess it was the finish on this tag, but some pieces of the vinyl didn't want to stick really well, but I just went back in with my fingernail and just pushed that down, and it looks great. And I untied the knot that was in the top of my tag just so I could tie it to the handle of my milk caddy. I took some of this decorative paper shred and just put in the bottom of each of the little holes or cups, and that would just help my milk bottles stay more stable and secure. And I just kind of took my fingers and went into the bottom of the cup and just made kind of like a little nest with those paper shreds, and that really helped my milk bottles be more stable. And I added just a little bit more around the edges as well, just to give that another decorative touch. And y'all, how cute is this? I absolutely love this. I can't wait to get it displayed in my kitchen. The only problem is finding a spot to put it. What do you guys think about this one? For this project, I just started by cleaning off this tobacco basket with a paper towel. I found this at a local antique store a couple of years ago, and I just wanted to give it a makeover. So I took some of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White, and I did have to thin this out just a little bit with some water. It was super thick, so I knew it wouldn't work well for the dry brushing technique. And I just took one of my chip brushes, dipped it in that paint, and got the excess off by scraping it along the edge of the bowl and dabbing that on the paper towel. And I just went across the entire surface of my tobacco basket, and I love how you can completely change the look of a piece with just a little bit of chalk paint. And I also took this chalkboard sign that came from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted to paint the frame of this, just change that color a little bit. I wanted it to kind of coordinate with the bow that I'm going to be adding, and that color was Seaside Blue, and that was from Deco Art. And I wanted to add just a little saying to that sign, and this one I already had in my folders. I'm not exactly sure where I picked this one up, but it was something that I really liked. It says, "Love you more than yesterday. Yesterday you got on my nerves." And I just thought that was super cute, and this will look great in my bedroom. But you can personalize this sign with anything that you would like. A Bible verse would be great on there, or a favorite quote from a book. I picked a couple of complementary fabrics from my stash, and these both came from the Dollar Tree. So I grabbed a pair of scissors and a ruler, and I went along the bottom edge and just cut slits that were an inch apart, and this will just allow me to rip and pull and just tear these strips of fabric to give me the frayed edges that I like so good. I love making these fabric bows. They just have that farmhouse and rustic vibe, and these are easy to do. So I just pulled 8 strips from this particular piece of fabric, and from my other one I pulled 9. And to start building your bow, you will just take 1 strip and you will fold that over about 2/3 the length of your piece of fabric, and you'll just repeat that with your other color of fabric. And what I should have done was put down 2 of the same color first before I alternated these. That would have just given me the tails that were different colors on either side. But you can kind of see how I'm doing that here. You just want your long piece to be on the left and then the next one to be on the right, just alternating. And then I took a pipe cleaner and just made the center part of my bow. I wanted to be able to put this on the tobacco basket where it could be easily changed out for different seasons and things like that. And I just took that extra piece of fabric and went around the pipe cleaner to cover that up. And I just fluffed out the loops for my bow and got that ready to put on the basket. And then I just took a piece of jute twine to attach my sign to the basket. Again, this will just let me change this out, and it would be easier to put something else in here if I want to take that off. I knew I didn't want to hot glue that to my basket. I didn't want to ruin the basket because I may change this up for different seasons. And I just centered that and tied that jute twine in a knot on the back. And I just did the same thing with my bow, just put those pipe cleaners towards the back, just twisted those around. And I just made sure everything was exactly where I wanted it before I trimmed off the ends of the jute twine on the back. And this one is finished and ready to go. Thank you all so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed these projects. I would love to know which one was your favorite. Please leave me a comment. I always enjoy reading those. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you know someone else that might enjoy it, please share, and I hope you subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will see you guys in the next one.